Capitol Hill, 3 GOP-led House committees have advanced legislation that's set to be combined into President Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill, tackling his legislative agenda. Despite infighting among party members, Republicans are moving forward with cuts to taxes, Medicaid, and food assistance after several marathon markup sessions. President Trump weighed in last night on Fox News and suggested the final bill could get Democratic support.
I think a lot of Democrats are going to be forced to vote for the bill because, you add this new element that if this bill passes, you're going to get a 50 to 90% reduction in prescription drugs and pharmaceuticals. When you add that in, how does a Democrat not vote? I don't think they can win an election if they don't vote for it. But even if you don't include it, I think that the Republicans are very unified and something would happen where they will get this vote.
Meanwhile, Republican Senator Josh Hawley is warning his own party over its push to make potential cuts to Medicaid. In a guest essay for the New York Times, Hawley wrote in part this: Mr. Trump has promised working-class tax cuts and protection for working-class social insurance, such as Medicaid. But now a noisy contingent of corporatist Republicans, call it the party's Wall Street wing, is urging Congress to ignore all that and get back to the old-time religion, corporate giveaways, preferences for capital, and deep cuts to social insurance. The wing of the party wants Republicans to build our big, beautiful bill around slashing health insurance for the working poor. But that argument is both morally wrong and politically suicidal. Hawley has continued to speak about the potential cuts yesterday during an appearance on CNN.
It ought to be just a basic foundational principle. It is wrong to cut health care for the working poor. And that's what we're talking about here with Medicaid. My state is a Medicaid expansion state. Over 20% of Missourians, including hundreds of thousands of children, are on Medicaid. And Mono, they're not on Medicaid because they want to be. They're on Medicaid because they cannot afford health insurance in the private market. These are working people and their children who need health care. And it's just wrong to go and cut their health care when they're trying to make ends meet, trying to help their kids, trying to make sure that they're able to provide for their families. So I hope that the House GOP and the Senate GOP will get the message here. I'm not going to support this bill from the House in this form. I think that's clear. It's got to change before it can pass the Senate. And I continue to stand by my line in the sand, which is no Medicaid benefit cuts. This is real Medicaid benefit cuts. I can't support that. No Republican should support that. We're the party of the working class, Mono. We need to act like it.
Well, this is something that we've been, that's something we've been talking about on the show for quite some time, that actually disproportionately Medicaid cuts, even though Republicans in the House obviously don't understand this, Medicaid cuts disproportionately impact Americans in rural communities, disproportionately impact red states like Josh Hawley. You look at in rural America, some estimates up to 50% of children get their primary health care from Medicaid providers. When you look at where people are sending their parents and grandparents to being taken care of in nursing homes, an overwhelming majority of those in rural communities, again, that's funded by Medicaid. There's already, we've had a guest on the show talking about this, there's already been a crisis in rural health care in America over the past 10, 15 years. This would so exacerbate it. You wonder seriously how Republicans couldn't listen, can't believe I'm saying this, to Josh Hawley, couldn't listen to Josh Hawley and understand. They want to slash health care benefits for their constituents in red state America to pay for tax cuts for billionaires living in Silicon Valley, Palm Beach, and Manhattan.
That's
terrible. Well, it's terrible, and it's also politically stupid. If you don't want to do it because it's the right thing to do it for your own political,
Be
preservation.
pragmatic. Yeah.
That makes sense. Let's bring in right now opinion writer for the New York Times, Frank Bruni. His recent New York Times best-selling book, The Age of Grievance, is now out in paperback. Now also with his co-anchor of CNBC's Squawk Box and a New York Times columnist, Andrew Ross Sorkin. Frank, I want to start with you. We heard Josh Hawley actually saying something that should be very obvious to most Republicans, especially Republicans in deep red state America, whether you're in Missouri, whether you're in Alabama, whether you're in Nebraska, wherever you are, Idaho, like Montana, Medicaid is a lifeline for those residents. And here you have Republicans talking about slashing Medicaid to pay for, billionaires' tax cuts on the coasts.
Which is why that big, beautiful bill has some big, unbeautiful problems, right? I mean, there's long been this myth in the Republican Party that anything that smacks of the welfare state is only for voters of color in Democratic cities. And as we know from as far back as that seminal book, What's the Matter with Kansas, a lot of these programs, a lot of government assistance goes to rural areas, goes to red states. And that's a big problem in terms of passing this bill. I listened to that clip you just played of President Trump saying he can't imagine any Republican being against it. I guess he can't hear Josh Hawley's voice or read the op-ed page of the New York Times, but there is disagreement in the Republican Party. There's disagreement in the MAGA caucus. I mean, I write about this in a column that'll go up in a couple of hours, but Laura Loomer has come out against the Medicaid cuts. And there's an interesting larger story here, which is we always talk of MAGA, or many of us talk too frequently of the MAGA movement as a cult. And it's actually quite fractious. And I think we're seeing that through the lens of this one big, beautiful bill. It sounds like a seventh grader named it.
It is so fractious. And you have, of course, Andrew, I'll throw this to you. You can talk about this coalition or go wherever you want to go, because you are Andrew Ross Sorkin and you remain as a media figure too big to fail. But we've seen this fight time and time again over the last 3 months, the sort of divide in MAGA world. Steve Bannon's populist wing, which Josh Hawley very clearly said there, who, again, Steve Bannon saying positive things about AOC, saying positive things about Bernie Sanders, and actually fighting against these tax cuts, saying they are absolutely terrible for the MAGA movement. Then on the other side, you have Elon Musk, you have Mark Andreessen, you have a lot of people on Wall Street who want those tax cuts. And so you're seeing this divide, again, whether it's tax cuts, whether it's tariffs, whether it's visas for high wage workers. Talk about that and look, what you see from your vantage point.
I think what you're seeing here is the old school, and I don't know if it's old school, fiscal conservatives who say, look, there's math here, and we want to somehow cut the budget. We want to cut taxes, all of those things. And if you're going to do those things and you're going to try to balance the budget, if in fact that is even a goal anymore, one of the things you might have to touch is Medicaid. So that's the sort of old school fiscal conservative class that's inside the White House and inside parts of Washington these days on the Republican side. But as I think you're alluding to, there is this sort of new populist movement inside of MAGA, which is almost, by the way, has in some cases a Bernie Sanders feel to it, depending on what the issue of the day is. And so, there's folks who are going to say, we got to keep Medicaid going, we got to keep spending, and we got to lower taxes. It's a very interesting thing to do because, in a way, it also takes away some of the argument, frankly, from Democrats. So, up until a week or two ago, it felt like there was actually a possibility that there would be higher taxes on the wealthy in America coming from MAGA. I mean, that there are people inside the White House talking about that. That now seems to be off the table. I think partially because that's off the table, there's now a view, how are you going to pay for everything? Well, how do you pay for things? Maybe you're going to have to take something off something else. And that's why I think there's this now new attack on Medicaid. But that's sort of the war going on inside the White House as we speak.